are standing for those who are most vulnerable around us as we provide to seek their security, their safety, and their protection. This past year, One More Child was able to provide direct services to more than 240,000 children and adults and provide over 20 million meals to those who are hungry. But we're standing in the Capitol this morning to address an issue that plagues our nation, that plagues our state, and every corner of our community. Child sex trafficking causes irreparable harm and life-altering trauma to those who are most precious and most vulnerable, our children. Children who are fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of our God are being bought and sold in the marketplace. Child sex trafficking is not a problem to be addressed. Child sex trafficking is an evil that needs to be eradicated. We are here to boldly stand for those victims of child sex trafficking. We stand with you alongside the U.S. Marshals in Operation We Will Find You, as we are part of the rescue and aftercare of 225 missing children. We stand with you alongside the FBI as we walk alongside you in the prosecution of your perpetrators. We stand with you in local law enforcement as we work alongside them in stings to provide services to victims and survivors at their time of greatest need. We stand with you in our mobile teams of clinicians, advocates, and mentors to be able to provide those resources of counseling, housing, and a community to be able to surround you with care. Today, I'm so grateful to be standing with incredible leaders from the House and the Senate and our law enforcement community, as well as other advocates that are dedicated to this fight. It takes all of us because this is a battle that has to be fought on multiple fronts. We must have sound legislation. We must have the needed resources, and we have to have strong partnerships. In 2023, One More Child was able to serve 673 victims. In addition, we were able to provide advocacy and training and awareness for more than 12,000 individuals. One of those survivors is Tiffany. From the ages of 9 to 17, Tiffany was trafficked by her mother. At the age of 17, she came to One More Child, and our mobile teams were able to surround her with care. They were able to walk alongside her in her recovery. And this past summer, Tiffany graduated the University of South Florida with her bachelor's in social work so that she can be a help to others that are fighting this fight. We are standing here today because of Tiffany. As I conclude, I want to encourage all of us that we have to be intentional, that we have to be courageous, and we have to be intense in this fight against child sex trafficking. This is a fight worth fighting. For our children, this is a fight worth winning. Now, at this time, I'd like to invite Senator Colleen Burton to be able to come to the podium to speak. Senator Burton is a true champion for children. She has been fearless and is a leader in this fight. Senator Burton.
Thank you, Dr. Haag, and good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, this morning across the state of Florida, there are boys and girls, and there are men and women who are the victims of human trafficking, sex trafficking. We cannot, as a state, as a community, turn a blind eye to this problem. Quite frankly, until I was in the state legislature, this was not an issue that I was aware of. And I was very involved in my community. And at that time, it was happening. It's been happening for years. And without the efforts of One More Child and their partner agencies across the state, these crimes would go unchecked. These victims would remain unserved. I am extremely grateful and proud of the work that One More Child does in our state. They do it with the partnership of law enforcement, with what we're able to do here at the state capitol and the legislature to support them, but we cannot do this alone. This is a community problem. This is in every city, every town, every county across our state. We as Floridians, we as good, decent human beings should care about this. So I would ask everybody in the state of Florida to start paying more attention, to support One More Child in their mission and organizations throughout our state that serve the victims of human trafficking, to support law enforcement in your communities when they ask you to keep your eyes open, when they ask you to be a participant in reporting what you believe could be human trafficking. Let's help One More Child. Let's help everybody in this state who's working on the effort to save lives of boys and girls and men and women all across this state. And together, we can defeat those who choose to traffic humans. Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Haag.
Thank you, Senator Burton, for your fearless leadership in this fight. We're also honored to be able to have Representative Jennifer Canady to join us and to be able to speak. Before she was even elected, Representative Canady has been passionate about being able to serve children and being able to protect the most vulnerable, and she's proven that in her leadership in the House. So, Representative Canady.
Thank you, Dr. Haag. You know, as we think about how we attack these issues, Dr. Haag mentioned that this is not a problem to be aware of, this is a battle to fight. And as we fight these issues and we think about the ways that One More Child has been most effective, so tremendously effective in getting in there to do the hard work of saving and transforming lives that have been so impacted by human trafficking. We think about things like 24-hour mobile crisis intervention and the counseling that they've been involved in, the survivor-led support. And what we recognize is that it takes all of us. It takes the entire community to support the victims, to support the survivors. We're grateful for our law enforcement partners. We're grateful for those in the community who stand up side by side and fight this with us, because it all comes back to protecting vulnerable people in our community. Those who have been impacted by human trafficking are often the most vulnerable of the vulnerable. I have been involved in ministries that protect those who struggle with things like homelessness, and I have known personally victims of child sex trafficking that have been often trafficked by family members. And as Senator Burton mentioned, it is invisible in communities, and we must do a better job of paying attention, of stepping forward, of entering into this fight, because it is a fight that we can win as a state. It is a fight that we are committed to. You know, this is not always what we see portrayed in Hollywood. This is often a problem that is exacerbated by social media, where children are lured and they are groomed. And we must be much more aware of the ways in which we can engage in being more mindful of protecting those who are the most vulnerable. So I am grateful to One More Child. I am grateful to the law enforcement partners, to those who do such a great job. And we need to have the entire community join the battle with us. So that is my challenge across the state of Florida, for people to stand up and step forward and be a part of the solution to this. So thank you very much to those of you that have been engaged in this for such a long time, for the effectiveness of partners like One More Child. And together, this is a battle we can win. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Canady. One of those pivotal parts of the leadership that we need critically across our state and that are unsung heroes in this is our law enforcement. We're so pleased to have Sheriff Bill Leeper, Nassau County Sheriff, as well as President of the Florida Sheriff's Association, and appreciate your leadership. Sheriff Leeper.
Thank you. A second. Good morning. Thank you for being here. I want to thank the leaders of One More Child for working to bring together a collection of voices that include great legislative leaders and our friends and partners at the Florida Police Chiefs Association. Human trafficking is a heinous crime that preys on the vulnerable in our society. and it demands our collective attention and action. The Florida Sheriff's Association is fully committed to combating human trafficking throughout our state. Our commitment extends to fostering strong partnerships with other law enforcement agencies and organizations across Florida. By working together, we can share resources, intelligence, and strategies to apprehend and prosecute those involved in human trafficking, and also be able to provide additional support to victims to help prevent further exploitation. We are dedicated to raising awareness about the signs of human trafficking and educating communities on how to protect themselves and their loved ones throughout our public channels, consistently being out in the community and working with our partners to spread the message. Fortunately for Florida, we have strong legislative voices dedicated to this concern. At FSA, we will continue to advocate for strong legislation that holds traffickers accountable and provides law enforcement with the tools necessary to combat this crime effectively. I want to give you a quick story about how easy it is to reach kids. One of our detectives, which is assigned to the North Florida Intercept Task Force, which is a public-private partnership to combat human trafficking and child exploitation, received information that a suspect in Texas began messaging a minor in Nassau County after the victim received a cell phone as a gift. The victim downloaded a game called Rec Room and was messaged by the suspect, who then told the victim to download Snapchat so they could talk. The victim's parents, who reported the incident to us, stated that the suspect asked for videos of the victim shirtless, as well as videos of private parts and videos of the victim using the bathroom. We then began an investigation into the online solicitation and child pornography of a juvenile. There were multiple photos sent to the suspect's Snapchat account and phone number. An interview was conducted with the victim, who stated that the suspect asked the victim to play a game in order to coerce the victim into sending sexually explicit photographs. The suspect was also posing as a 14-year-old girl and did not disclose to the victim that he was actually a 19-year-old male. Working with Texas authorities, our detectives traveled to Texas to make an arrest after a search warrant was issued. The suspect's phone was searched and other images and child sexual abuse material were located. The suspect was then booked into one of the Texas county jails with 2 counts of possession of child pornography with other charges pending. In order to stop this, we need parents to quit being in denial that their child will never think about doing something like this. Parents have to understand that the first line of defense is at home. So they need to be all up in their child's business. I'm sure some may not want to do that, but I believe you'd rather do that than let one of these scumbags get all up in your child's business. If you give your child a cell phone, I recommend first don't let them out into the internet world. But if you're going to let them out into the internet world, then you need to have an app on your phone where you can trace and know everything your child is searching up or who they're talking to. You have to do that. If not, these folks will get to your children. The Florida Sheriff's Association is unwavering in its commitment to combat human trafficking. By working together with law enforcement, non-governmental organizations, and the community, we can create a safer Florida for everyone.
Thank you, Sheriff Leeper, and all of our local law enforcement for your courageous efforts to be able to step in and be able to rescue and recover children that have been victimized. Next, I'd like to introduce our Executive Director of Anti-Trafficking for One More Child, Jodi Domangue. Jodi is a remarkable leader, and she and our anti-trafficking mobile teams are on the front lines, really carrying the heaviest load of providing services to those that have been victimized and to future survivors. Jodi?
Thank you, Dr. Haag. And I would also like to thank Representative Canady, Senator Burton, and Sheriff Leeper for their continued partnership and support as well. Human sex trafficking is not something that's happening in another state or far off third world country. It's happening here every day to the residents of Florida. And what's worse, it's happening to our children. And one organization, one law enforcement agency, one legislator cannot eradicate this horrific evil alone. It takes all of us. It takes many great partners in the legislature, and it also takes dedicated partners on the ground like the Florida Sheriff's Association. Florida is already a leader in these collaborations between organizations like One More Child, lawmakers, and law enforcement. We have been on the ground during recovery operations for the last decade. And because of this great collaboration, we've had many success stories of survivors who have changed the trajectory of their lives, like April. We first talked to April in a recovery operation in Central Florida more than 4 years ago. And at the time, April was not ready to admit that she was a victim of sex trafficking. But our expert team of lived experience and trauma experts kept following up with April. Well, we received a call just a few short months ago, and it was April. And for the first time, she was ready to recognize that she was actually forced into prostitution against her will. She was on her way to a recovery program, residential program, for the first time to get the much needed help that she needed to change the trajectory of her life. She wanted us to be her last phone call. And while we're always grateful to get calls like April's, what we know is that there are many victims of this crime who will not make that call in time. We lose victims every day to very violent crimes, to drug addiction that's caused by this trauma, and this is a tragedy that together we can change through increased prevention and awareness, through meaningful and effective legislation, and through organizations and more funding to organizations like One More Child. And most importantly, through Florida residents who are compassionate about this issue. Now I have the privilege of introducing Laura Henderson. Laura is a lived experience expert and survivor leader. Not only is she using her personal story to be a beacon of hope to others, she is speaking from the experience of the multitude of survivors that she supports every day. Laura and the survivors she represents is the reason we must stay committed to this very important work.
Good morning, and thank you all for being here today. My name is Laura Henderson, and as a survivor leader in the community, I am grateful for the work that has and is being done on the issue of human trafficking. As a survivor mentor for One More Child's anti-trafficking mobile teams, I get to work every day with adults and youth who we help to find stability, restoration, and offer resources such as mentorship, advocacy, and clinical services. It is my honor and passion to give back to these survivors every single day as a lived experience expert. I was only 4 when my mother passed away, and shortly after I entered into foster care. I had lost my sense of home and grew up in chaos and confusion. Adopted at the age of 13, only for my adopted parents to get divorced by the time I was 16. After I made it to college, I found myself in a relationship with a man who forced me to work in the clubs. Having a child and going back to school, I began to turn my life around. That was until August 15th, 2012, when my adoptive father had taken his life. This sent me spiraling back into addiction and ultimately into the hands of my first trafficker. I was looking for love and acceptance in the wrong places. I had no one else to turn to. I was alone. The year Backpage was shut down in 2018 was when I was able to finally escape. 1 year after, I found the door to freedom. I found hope. I have now been a survivor for 6 years and recently celebrated 5 years of recovery. We do recover. As I look back at my own life, I can see where positive and informed role models could have stepped in and made a difference in my life. That is what I am hoping happens through more awareness about the realities of trafficking. As people are informed with the truth, we can make a difference for others. I understand what it's like to have life taken from me, and am very devoted to encouraging others who've been trafficked to take back their lives and live it to the fullest. I currently serve as the survivor representative and vice chair for the Pasco County Commission on Human Trafficking. I'm a lived experience expert, survivor leader, mentor, advocate, and public speaker. I also serve as the survivor representative for the United Way of Pasco County's Fighting Human Trafficking Advisory Board. I have found my purpose and passion in advocating for others who have been trafficked, abused, neglected, or simply left behind. Awareness of human trafficking is one of the many things I am deeply passionate about, and I believe that together we can all make a difference in the lives of the most vulnerable. And so I ask you this: which direction will you go from here? To the left by looking the other way and pretending as if this insidious crime doesn't exist, directly affect you, or that you don't have a part to play? Or to the right, where you can choose to do the right thing by taking a stand with us against this heinous crime and helping us to further our mission of advocating, educating, spreading awareness, and continued services and resources for survivors everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura, for sharing your personal story and for allowing to be a beacon of hope now for victims and those that are survivors out there to know that they can follow your direction and the way and your example that you set. Thank you, Laura. Yeah. At this time, I'd like to invite to the podium Sara Mahoney and Paul and Toni Azinger. So if you'll make your way up here. Sara Mahoney is a leader in this fight against trafficking. She serves on the advisory board of the U.S. Institute Against Human Trafficking. Toni Azinger is a real champion for vulnerable children. She serves by appointment on the Florida Alliance to End Human Trafficking. And Paul Azinger is here with Toni, but you may know Paul more as a 12-time PGA Tour winner, as well as golf commentator. But I want you to really know Paul and Toni as true champions for vulnerable children across all different spaces. So, Sara?
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Haag, and to Christy Haag, and to Sheriff Leeper, and to our amazing representatives here in Florida. It is a great pleasure and an honor for Toni Azinger and Paul Azinger and myself to present this check to One More Child for their truly groundbreaking work in fighting human trafficking, for rescuing and stabilizing children, not just here in Florida, but around the country and globally. Your work is unbelievable, and we are so blessed in the state of Florida to have you on this fight with us all. So from the proceeds from the inaugural teeing off to Stop Human Trafficking golf tournament, it is our great pleasure to present this check for $25,000 to One More Child.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you. Toni, please.
That.
Okay.
Sure. We'll
Very good. Okay. Thank you so very much. I mean, what a meaningful way to be able to contribute, to raise that awareness, to be able to host individuals, to be able to say this is important, but to provide those much needed resources so that we can come alongside survivors in this fight against human trafficking. As we conclude, I want to be able to conclude this with this and be able to speak directly to those that are still being victimized. We see you. We stand here with you, and will continue to stand until child sex trafficking is eradicated. Thank you, and God bless you all.